Oscar bait if it was in the style of a Call of Duty game. How could that not work? I've never hidden away from the fact that there is just a lack of accessibility to some films that I find extremely off-putting, and I don't even think in this case that that is anything to do with the story itself or the characters. It's the framing of it all, because this entire almost 2.5 hour film is in POV, in first-person view, from the view of one of these two main characters all times, and that is just not a format I believe you ever actually really need in film outside of porn. Nickelboys is about a young man on the right track to college despite being black in 1960s America, but when he hitchhikes from a dude that's driving a stolen car, he gets labelled as an accomplice and sent off to a reform school that's filled with abuse and racism against the black guys sent there. And that is the entire plot of the film, pretty much. Yeah, they experience a lot of bad things there, start to realise that the other black kids are not just getting mistreated generally, they're getting properly abused and they are getting murdered, and there is just a whole list of awful things going on, but none of it is, like, from once you see that setting, none of it feels surprising. I don't know if that's just because we've seen so many films like this before. It just feels like every other jail film, except that it's in, like, first person view the whole time. And them being like students, it doesn't really play into the plot much. Them being young doesn't really play into the plot much. Like, apart from the fact that one of the two leads is this idealistic kid who really wants to like fight for better rights, and the other one is cynical and just doesn't think the world's going to give an inch more than it has to them. And a lot of the themes and stuff going on are really interesting. I feel like my biggest problem with this film is it's just got too many gimmicks. I have to say, emotionally connecting with the story at times was difficult because of the POV thing. I think there's just a difficulty, a challenge to that it was just off-putting to me. And I really was like going, oh god, this is going to be atrocious for the first maybe 20 minutes, because I really didn't like it. And I got over it to some degree, enough that I don't think this is an awful film or anything like that. But I'm not going to be cheering for this to win much at the Oscars, for example. You know, I don't think this is something that's really blown me away in the way that I expect a film to do. I think Nickelboys is a very interesting story to tell right now, because you see this kid that's a dreamer and this kid that's cynical, and how their paths almost merge into one over time, and that is really interesting to tell right now, because I feel like somehow, even though it shouldn't work, kind of optimism and cynicism have blended into one in a lot of people nowadays when they look at the world. And it's kind of rough. But it is also about so much more than that, and that is, I think, just my problem with this film, is that as much as it has a story, the story feels like secondary, because it is a relatively basic story. Nickelboys has a lot of beauty to it, don't get me wrong, but the POV thing, it's off-putting for me. I don't think I'm on board with this nearly as much as a lot of other people seem to be. I think it is one of the weaker, definitely, like, Best Picture nominees and kind of Oscar films in general that I've seen this year. I don't think it's the weakest, certainly, but it's just got too many gimmicks, too much going on, too many messages it's trying to push. It's just a lot, all in one. And I feel like trying to create a definitive experience on themes this all-encompassing is very difficult. And it is also a format 99% of the time just used for porn, so that was weird. So I'm giving the Shaw Skank Redemption 3 stars. There are great individual scenes and moments to this, but it is just such a lot of messiness surrounding it all that it doesn't feel like there's anything clear or coherent coming across at any point. There are some very, like, the twists, like, I don't know, they were pretty guessable most of the time, from, like, halfway at least, maybe a bit earlier. Subscribe for more hard truths.